Hello all, this is Al Finch. I am bringing you another installment in my Barlowe's Guide to Extraterrestrials series. In this series, I use the book Barlowe's Guide to Extraterrestrial by Wayne Douglas Barlowe, originally published in 1979. This book features images and descriptions of aliens from science fiction literature. I like to look at a single entry from the book, discuss the related media. I also like to talk about if you might like this series. I recommend other kinds of media that you can check out. And then finally, I like to talk about how you can use the creature depicted in the book in your own role-playing game. My entry today is going to feature the Master from John Christopher's Tripods series. This series was originally started in 1967. There were a set of 3 books that featured these creatures. The first was The White Mountains. The second was The City of Gold and Lead. The third and last of the original trilogy was The Pool of Fire. And then much later, in the 1980s, we get a prequel called When the Tripods Came. This series, I would say, and I'm going to go ahead and say all of these are episodes featuring Barlowe's Guides are going to be spoilers, full of spoilers. This series, I would say, is very good, especially if we're looking at books for a young adult or maybe tween audience. The first 3 books in particular, I would say, are aimed almost directly at tween or early teen boys. There's hardly any female presence at all in the first 3 books. They're very male-centric. There are women that do show up, but they're either motherly types, or when we do meet a girl, they are almost totally brainwashed by the invading aliens and treated as objects that are important only for how they look. In the city of Gold and Lead, a girl that is taken by the alien masters is essentially brought into their city, killed, and then preserved so that the masters can look upon them at any time that they want. It's very reminiscent of how people, say, might have treated butterflies that they capture and add pinned into their butterfly collection. It's a little bit of a disturbing aspect to the books. Later, all right, the much later prequel does feature female characters that are much more strong, much more interesting, but it is something that I know some folks may have concerns about. But in any case, it's still a good series, especially given the time frame that it was written. Remember, the 1960s and 70s. It was a very different worldview. Let's talk a little bit more about the masters themselves, the invading aliens. They invade the Earth using a set of tripods. You may be familiar with that theme from much earlier work, H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. And an interesting aspect is you can see that the masters here are creatures where their body features sets of 3. We have 3 eyes, 3 tentacles, and 3 legs. They put this into their machines. We have the tripods, which is what the series is named after. I always thought it was strange, right, that advanced alien species, their war machines would be tripods. And in the War of the Worlds, I always felt like that was kind of a major flaw. Like if you could take out one of the legs of a tripod, you could take the tripod down. But at least in the Tripod series by John Christopher, there's an explanation for why you would have this kind of inefficient way of getting around. It's very important to the masters culturally, so we see it in their machines, even if that makes the machines less efficient or weaker. So I thought that was kind of a cool touch, why we had tripods invading instead of, say, tetrapods. These are slaver creatures. They come to conquer alien species and make them their servants. Get kind of a very Jabba the Hutt feel from their appearance in general. And while they do have advanced technology, really they don't take over the Earth so much through physical force as through means of propaganda and hypnosis and just general mental enslavement. So it's a very interesting aspects of this species. Now, if you happen to like alien invasion stories featuring tripods, there's some obvious recommendations that I can make beyond this series. H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds that came out in 1897 is a classic. I personally love the adaptation that Orson Welles did in his radio broadcast of War of the Worlds in 1938. So if you're looking for something to listen to, both of those things are pretty easy to track. War of the Worlds book is public domain, I think, at this point. If it isn't, it might as well be. The book's kind of ubiquitous. You can find it just about anywhere in collections and things like that. War of the Worlds by Orson Welles radio troupe can probably be found easily on YouTube at this point. Some other things that might be of interest would include 1953's Invaders from Mars by director William Cameron Menzies. That particular film also features a young male protagonist dealing with alien invaders who are enslaving the local populace of his town. There was a 1986 version, a remake also done. That one was directed by Toby Hooper. Invaders from Mars, it's the same name, same themes. A tween boy has to deal with alien invaders that are slowly taking over the population. All great media, all things that I highly recommend if you enjoy the theme of conquering alien invaders from other worlds. Related to the original H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, because that's public domain, it often gets incorporated into other works of fiction. Here is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. This is volume 2. In this book, the main cast of characters, again, great public domain bits, the Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and so forth, take on the Martian invaders. And there's some great scenes in here where the tripods are heavily featured. So I encourage folks to check out this book as well if they enjoy these kind of classic bits of science fiction. All right, so the masters here as monsters in your role-playing game. I think there's some pretty easy ways to incorporate them. I like playing Dungeons and Dragons and related games, so I would incorporate that into my Dungeons and Dragons game, kind of using a reskin of an existing monster. There's a creature described in the monster manual that is almost a perfect fit for these guys. We have in Dungeons and Dragons the aboleth. Okay, so with the aboleth, we have a set of enslaving creatures that work in a difficult or alien environment. with the aboleth, these are seafaring creatures, all right? They come in, they bring people to them, and they brainwash them using telepathic powers. After they have taken over their slaves, they then make them hard for people to rescue because they can bring them into the ocean and keep them there in their lair. They can produce a mucus that allows their slaves to breathe underwater but not breathe air, which complicates matters even further. I think you could very easily take the statistics for aboleths and apply them almost directly to the master. Masters are creatures, though, that aren't aquatic, but do come from an alien environment. And in the second book, The City of Gold and Lead, there is a good description of what that environment is. Essentially, their home planet is hot and humid and is high gravity, and the air there is poisonous. So when they build their bases on Earth, they create these kind of terraformed bubbles, these cities that have this environment in it. When they bring their slaves into that environment, the slaves, and you can see it here, have to wear special equipment so they can survive in the poisonous atmosphere. This, to me, almost beat for beat, matches up with the description of the aboleth. The advantage here, though, is maybe you don't want to have a game that is set underwater or near water. Well, creatures like the masters operate on land. They just create a awkward environment that can pose a challenge for characters. We can have them enter without having to worry about, say, water breathing spells. Instead, they're going to have to maybe break in and steal equipment, things like that. So that's my recommendation for bringing the masters into your game. I think that they can make some very interesting opponents. They can be, I think, a little less challenging than the aboleths. In some ways, if you take into the physicality of the creatures, you could make them still have high hit dice. The aboleth in this particular edition has 8 hit dice, which makes them a pretty tough creature. These guys have a weakness where a specific strike on a portion of their anatomy can just kill them outright. So you could potentially substitute in the masters for the aboleths for a lower level group if they can figure out the secret to where they strike on the master's anatomy. That can make them a lot less of a physical threat. All right, I think that is enough about the master for now. If you've read the series and like to share your opinions on it, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I hope you enjoy the series. I hope you check out some of the other media that I recommended as well. All right, I believe that's it. Ta-ta for now.